So today I am excited to introduce Wade Simmons. He is a short filmmaker, professional wrestler in training. He trains professionally wrestling, and he has also worked in a funeral home for 12 years. Three seemingly random facts. However, they tie together, and today we're gonna learn how. Good morning. Still morning, I guess.
Yep. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm really excited.
I'm doing great. Yep. I'm as ready as I can be.
All right, well, let's dive right into it. The point of our kind of conversation today is these are three really kind of random seeming facts, right? Like they don't really seem like they go together. So you've been in funeral service work the longest, 12 years.
Yep.
How did you get into that first? Like what intrigued you? It, what about that intrigued you? You're like, this is what I want to do.
So when I was I forget what it was, but we were in Kansas City for like a church convention,
Hmm.
and I literally drowned and had it was like a weird spiritual experience. Um, I'm like the Apostle Paul wrote in the Bible. Like I don't know if I was in the body or out of the body. I don't know,
Wow.
but I saw some really. It wasn't scary or nothing, but it was like angels and things of that kind of sort. And then that kind of made me more like aware of God and stuff like that. And then like I think from then on I was just interested in becoming a mortician.
Okay. Okay. So what exactly do you do because we've had kind of brief conversations, but for my listeners who don't know anything about you yet, what exactly do you do on your kind of day-to-day basis working in their funeral home?
So I mean I stay overnight, answer phones when I can. I kind of gotten away from the phones because of my voice, but for the most part, helping families, filling urns, working services, stepping in where needed, because in that field, it's like so many different aspects of it. Yeah, it's. I
Right.
mean, it's like you don't necessarily have one job. You have like you wear very many hats.
Okay, interesting. Okay, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, you have someone who speaks to the family, makes the arrangements, whatnot. You have, somebody else who does this, someone else who attends the funeral, somebody else who, no, different kind of thing. So it's not like, and maybe it's different for where you are, maybe it's different other places, but for you in particular, it's not it's kind of like an all hands on deck, like
Yeah,
a group effort.
yeah, you're all over the place. I mean, but I mean, it comes with the territory. But I mean, I think that's the good thing about the job. Like you're not confined to one thing. Like you can branch out and do many other things.
Yeah, yeah. What is your favorite aspect of this job or this
Uh,
career?
So to me, it's like kind of like three things. The one thing is that you get to meet different people. You're not around the same people all the time. You get to meet people, and I feel like in the world we live in, right, in a lot of environments and working on some jobs, people don't really get along. But I think that like working there, even though families don't always get along now,
Oh, I
I
have
mean, we
questions
witness
about
that
that too.
it goes down in that place. But I mean, for the most part, for me, what I draw from it is that it just kind of teaches you to be mindful that, that people are important. And, you got to, keep loving your heart for them. So that's one part of it. But the second part is like, it kind of motivated me to see like, you got to be intentional with what you do with your time. Like, time waits for nobody. And you got to enjoy your own life and, be an individual. Cause like we live in a world where kind of like, a lot of people are always kind of like looking at the next person, the next woman or the next man, but it
Yeah.
kind of teaches you to look at yourself and like, what am I doing to better my life and how am I using my time? Because I can't speak for nobody else. Like, when it's our time to go, we go out as an individual. So
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
you have
Yep.
to kind of focus on the things that better your life.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect way to say it. I mean, I would imagine that when you are in a profession where you're dealing with death, you're dealing with grief, you're not only dealing with the death that occurred, but you're also dealing with the family members and their emotions and everything like that and the whole kind of process that yeah, I think that you said it perfectly. It I would imagine it would put you into a perspective of like and then too like how our lives affect other people because
Yeah.
you see, people's reactions, their emotions, their experience with it too. So outside of just the person who passes, you see kind of everyone else who's affected by it too.
Yeah.
How does that affect your life and your interactions with people getting to see those experiences?
It teaches me to like not sweat the small stuff.
Mm, yeah.
Because like what you see a lot, like, because a lot of times you see family who hadn't spoke to each other in years. I
Mm,
mean, you people come in with a lot of regret, like, standing over their loved ones saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And, it just teach me like, we should never take life for granted because, we never know.
yeah.
And it's, I mean, we sometimes the things we take for granted every day is like, man, I'll get a chance to make it right. I'm not going to talk to this person.
Yeah.
I'm ready. But,
Hmm.
you learn very on working there that things can change very quickly
Yeah.
out of nowhere. So, it just teaches you to be mindful, just to appreciate every moment, and appreciate people. And even though you may not like everything that people do, but you still kind of respectfully have love in your heart toward them.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So about you don't have to give us like an exact if you don't want to, but about how old were you when you started working there?
I was 18. I was
Eight.
like it was my senior year in high school.
Okay, so being this 18-year-old kid, essentially, like what was your thought process going into this? What made you say like at 18, this is what I want to do?
So it's kind of funny you say that because I had a teacher in high school named Miss Jackson, and she made us. This was like my freshman year. She made
Mhm.
us write out a plan for our life,
Uh-huh.
and in my plan, I wrote that I wanted to be a mortician and I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so really everything, and then that didn't start in high school. That started like when I was very young, both interests. So like it was
Okay.
just me kind of following my passion.
Hmm. Okay. Nice, nice.
Yep. And I had my teacher, Miss Anderson. She called the guy that I work for now, Mr. Spencer Lee Jr. She called his wife, and then his wife set up a conversation with her and
What?
him, and then I got involved, and he was like, have him, come with a white shirt, a gold tie, and a black suit, and then I've been coming ever since.
Nice. That's kind of crazy though. I mean, at 18 to be like, okay, this is what I want to do. It's wonderful that you had someone that cared enough to be like, you know what, I'm gonna set you on this path, and then it's up to you to take it and stay on it. And so,
Yeah,
it's that's really cool that like I said, to have someone to set you up, but also that at 18 you focused enough to say, this is what I want to do, and you stayed there and you've been there um
yeah.
to both degrees because so then that takes us on kind of into your filmmaking career because that's what you started next. So you've been doing that for about 4 years. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about how that kind of coincides and what that journey, the beginning of that journey looks like for you.
So truthfully, I knew that I always wanted to be a filmmaker too. But what I did was because because when I was a kid or a child, I always had cameras. I was videoing. I was writing poetry. I was writing stories. Well, I didn't start really writing poetry more until high school, but I wrote a lot as a kid too. But
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker. But being realistically, I'm like, we live in a world where you got to make money to live. And
True.
so, out of the two careers, the funeral business was probably the better route to go because I mean, let's be real, like, if I make enough money, I could always fund my own films as
Absolutely.
opposed to just pursuing film full time because what a lot of people don't realize is like it's not impossible to work in the film industry, but it's not a very steady job either.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
don't want to be sitting around waiting on somebody to and I mean, in the film industry,
yeah,
it's not all bad like people think. I mean, it's people there, normal people, living a normal life, making a normal salary.
yeah,
Because I know people have a lot of thoughts about that, but I mean, it's a job, but it's not a job that I wanted to rely on. So I chose to go to school to be a mortician first, and then I was kind of struggling to pass my exit exam, so I eventually passed the funeral service part, like right when I went to film school, which was crazy
oh,
because people
wow.
I was just doing something else and you didn't. But
Yeah,
I thank God that I follow how He led me, because like right when I went to film school, I passed funeral director side. So
nice.
then I
Maybe you just
focused on
needed like
film.
that inspiration. You
Yeah,
needed the inspiration that came from something else.
yeah, because like, and the funny thing about it, like I was looking at a TED talk, and like this one lady, I don't know why I cannot find this one video with the lady talking, but she was speaking and she made a statement, said, there is no final draft, and
Oh,
something about like kind of rewrite your reality to make it what you want to be. And so I'm like, well, I'm like, okay, I'm struggling to pass this exam, so maybe I should go back to school, just kind of like, it never hurts
yeah,
to have more than one thing. So
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
about plumbing. So I went down to Vegas because my uncle, he owns a plumbing company in Vegas.
Okay.
I went to work with him, and I love working with my uncle. I had a lot of fun, but it's not, let me be real. My family, God bless them with those type of skills. It skipped past me. So, what I mean? Like, so,
I
I,
hear you.
I stay in my lane. So I said,
Yeah,
well, if I'm gonna go back to school, why not go for something that I like? So I chose film school, and I went and graduated, and got a degree in it, and the rest is history.
yeah, yeah. It's funny how like the kind of the full circle thing because when I was little, this is kind of it's kind of embarrassing, but it fits. So I'm gonna tell it anyway. But when I was little, I would take like a tape recorder, okay, and because I didn't have an iPhone, I would take a tape recorder and I would like play songs on the radio. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Because I it says that my connection was unstable, so I was like, I want to make sure that you're able to hear me. Um, but so I would take a tape recorder, I'd, like record a song, and then I would be like the DJ. So I would record myself talking about the song and doing the things that they do. And then I don't know, I was probably like a young teenager. I kind of got into like modeling and stuff like that. But I would also, so my father, he was a country singer and
Nice.
they were in a band, Dakota, they went on tours and this kind of stuff. And they kind of, the members kind of had some substance and, issues and things like that. And so they had to, kind of end that, but they were pretty big locally. I know I don't know exactly because I was really small when this was a thing, but like I have newspaper articles like they were legit. And so my family is kind of musical. My sister, she likes to sing and stuff like that. So when I was younger, I would record myself singing and like commentating. So then when I got older, other than like having to record stuff for school or, I recorded a sermon for one of my degrees, things like that, I kind of got out of that. However, here I am now and I have a podcast and I have started to, because my podcast didn't really start out with me interviewing people. It was just me and somebody else talking. So now I'm interviewing people and things like that. And it's kind of like it's really cool because I've kind of had this interest since I was a small kid, you know, to,
Nice.
and I'm definitely a people person. I love to talk. I love to get to know people. I love to learn. And so learning about people, that's something I can do, having conversations and stuff like that. But, you know, I just thought, that was pretty cool and kind of relative to the whole full circle thing because sometimes we have these things that are just kind of little hobbies. And then when things happen, life happens, you kind of get derailed from that. But at some point, you typically get back to it, and it's this great feeling because I absolutely love this. And I can imagine that once you were able to get that degree and start making films and things like that, you were like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love, like, I'm so glad I was able to get back to this, kind of thing
Yeah.
with that and the wrestling, which we'll get into, but specifically with the filmmaking, because that's a passion that you had. Life kind of came along. It was like, okay, we're going to take this little, derail. We're going to get you into the funeral business, which two totally different things. I mean, I guess you could use filmmaking in that industry though for the
Yep.
family of deceased and things like that. So,
Yep.
but yeah, it's cool how things kind of come back together. Once life lets us kind of get back on our path.
Yeah, that's true. But no, you said it perfectly. Like that's actually true.
um, Thank you. So, so I'm all, I'm gonna post a couple of your videos and I'll put the Venmo link will be in the information, the information. I feel like that's not the right word, but I think it is.
It's okay. I know what you mean. It's okay.
So yeah, so his information will be in the information. I'll figure out the word and I'll throw it in there later or something. Um, I want to say the like about me section, but that we're not on Facebook, so that doesn't really make sense. But so okay, I do want to talk a little bit. I don't want to make you nervous, and I don't want to
No,
like,
that's okay.
but I do want to talk about a little bit about the spastic dysplasia.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I do have spasmodic dysphonia.
Oh,
A lot of people. It's
I
okay.
completely
It's
chopped
all
it
right.
up.
You know what? A lot of people don't know what it is, but yeah, because like a lot of people that know me over the years, they like, man, what happened to your voice? But yeah, I developed a weird vocal disorder. And so, I went to like was going back and forth to the doctor about it because they wanted to make sure like it was no tumor or nothing like that. And thank God it wasn't. But
Right, right.
so I was doing research, and when I finally went to the doctor and we were talking, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and they checked me out, and that's what it was. But to make a long story short, spasmodic dysphonia is like a it's like it could be neurological or it could be like muscle related, but it's like a very
Okay.
weird disorder where like when you talk, like if I'm happy, my voice is normal. If I get nervous or stressed out, my voice strains real bad. So
Mhm.
that's part of the reason why I try to kind of stay away from the phones at work.
No, that
Cause
makes sense
sometimes
though.
like, yeah, because if you get
Yeah.
really tense, then my voice is like really bad and that's not good. But like you said, life does bring you full circle because when I was talking with the doctor, she was like, could it be that you're working in the funeral business? Could that be maybe, dealing with people so closely or whatever? Could that be part of your stress? So I mean,
Ah,
right. So I kind of had to reduce my days a little bit.
gotcha.
And not only reduce my days, but I'm also working on some changes and, trying to focus more on finally getting licensed too, so I can, kind of work a bit differently. Cause like you can do embalming. There's so many other aspects you can do where you wouldn't have to be so interactive with the people.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to, sorry, I want to kind of piggyback a little bit on the funeral service work because this is something that's been kind of interesting to me for a while. Realistically, when my fiance's mother passed, so it actually was 4 years ago, the day before Thanksgiving this year. So the day before Thanksgiving this year made 4 years. So she was on dialysis for a pretty long time. And she went to dialysis one day, dropped at dialysis. So she finished her round at dialysis, came out to the parking lot to wait for the bus, and just dropped.
Oh,
And so I have a pretty not great history with death. um, I've lost people to murder. I've lost people to suicide. I've lost people to death of old age, which is typically easier to deal with than the murder and the suicide. Um, but so I don't have the greatest relationship with death. However, I feel like my experiences have brought me to a place where I get it.
Yeah.
Like I kind of I feel like I may understand it a little bit more than a lot of people because I've experienced that grief a lot. So I felt like it would kind of make me a good candidate to work with people who are immediately experiencing that loss because I've dealt with so much of it that I just thought like, okay, I mean, I'll be able to connect with people. I can, I've identified the body and it didn't really bother me, like I accepted, my brain accepted it because we were in the hospital room with her when we had to make the decision to take her off life support about 3 or 4 days later. We were in the room when her life officially left her body. And so to experience something like that and to identify a body and and everything like that, I just felt like I feel like this is probably something I could do to an extent where I could do it and and I went through the whole we didn't have a funeral for her, but we
Okay.
had her cremated. So we had,
Okay.
to do that whole and I was there with him through that process. So like I was just like I feel like it's something that I could do and something I could be useful to others for because I can keep it together in that kind of situation. Um, However,
Yeah.
I also like this is something that I'm still kind of like figuring out spiritually, but I also feel like I have I don't know how to explain it with even kind of to myself kind of sound a little bit crazy because it's not something I've completely explored yet, but I've had experiences where I feel kind of like spiritual connections and things like that. Um, a lot of times when someone has passed or someone is process of passing, I can't sleep for like 3 days. Like my soul is just like super restless. I know something happening, and it's usually someone close to me or someone close to me that's very close to them. Um,
It's more common than you think. Trust me.
Really?
I
Okay.
get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You're not the only one. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Because
But I mean again, that's why you just have to make the most of time,
yeah, yeah,
and appreciate people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, like this was when, 4 years ago when we were going through this process, I'm at the funeral home and I was like, man, I really want to learn more about this. I feel like this is something I could do and I would be helpful doing it. Um, but then I went back to school for mental health and I started doing, other things and started this and we started a business and so again life just kind of like no we're gonna table that
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you got to look at it like this. Like most of the funeral directors that I know, like the unique thing about being a mortician that a lot of people don't know is like a lot of funeral directors that I know have more than one job. I
Mhm.
mean, because I mean, for some people do it full time, but I know some funeral directors that are lawyers. I
Oh
mean,
wow,
I know a funeral director that's a pilot. I mean, so
wow, you know some
some
pretty
of them have.
interesting people.
Yeah, I know a funeral director that's a military man. He works for the city of Chicago. I mean, he works for the bank. So I mean, a lot of them have more than one thing that they do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
which that's the cool thing about the job is like
Yeah,
you can kind of you're free to kind of make it what you want to make it.
yeah, yeah. um yeah, I mean well and it's you're kind of proof of that because you have these other things that you're working on in life and you're able to be successful at this thing successfully get into this thing and I think it's pretty cool too that you're still able to connect with other people. You work in this service that seems like it could be emotionally draining, spiritually draining, but you're still able to connect with people and conversate and fulfill your dreams and things like that. And I feel like sometimes that industry maybe kind of gets like a gloomy reputation, because it's like, oh, you're just
Yeah,
dealing with death all the time, but there are other components to it too.
yeah. Well, that's why I feel like most people, for whatever reason they got into the business. Everybody has different reasons. Some money wise, some for a spiritual reason, some just because they like to help people. But I mean, at the most part, I think that one thing that all of us can say, for whatever reason we got into that business, is that it teaches you to make the most of life. And I think like if you take that side of it with you, I feel like that brings you more joy because it's like, because when you
Yeah.
bring people in, you can't help but think about your own mortality, and it makes you be like,
Yeah.
man, when I leave here, I'm enjoying myself. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like to
That makes
me,
sense.
I don't take the sadness with me. Like I take the reality side with me. And the fact that when I leave out of that place, I'm always working on something to enjoy myself.
Yeah. That's good. That's a wonderful perspective to have. So let's jump into your more recent wrestling career because so I have a 15-year-old. She trained with George South for about a year, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because so she's training with him and he moves kind of slow with the way he trains. And at first we were kind of like, okay, he had to put a pause on his training because of the building they were in. They
Yeah.
were renting and they wanted to hike up the prices. And so George didn't want to start overcharging people. So he said, okay, I'm going to take a pause. When I get into a new building, we'll come back together. And I appreciated that because he's like, he doesn't charge very much. Really, he could charge much more for his training. He's very successful. And he's like, but I don't want to. I don't want to overcharge people because this is a
Yeah.
dream. And if I overcharge people, they might not be able to fulfill their dream. And I admired that. However, we miss him dearly because she absolutely loves doing this. And my fiance and I are kind of talking about it this morning. Like, we don't want her to lose that spark. Like, we've gone to a few different training centers, and one was like an hour or so away, and we're doing this in the afternoon, having to leave a little bit early to get back because I have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, take kids
Yeah.
places and whatnot. So like, okay, well, we'll do this for a little bit, but it's not really feasible. We tried a couple places and they were all good, but we realized that they're much faster paced. And while we're sitting here like, dang, like he's kind of, taking his time with teaching them these things. Well, now I appreciate that because we went to these other places and they just kind of throw you in. And for a
Yeah.
15-year-old girl who has
Yeah.
school and everything else, it's like, wait a minute, she
Yeah.
she was able to do things, but man, it was a big difference. And she's only 15. It's like she's not going to
Yeah.
be traveling and she can't do all that right now. I can't have other kids. I can't homeschool her to travel,
Yeah.
as much as I would kind of love to, kind of. But it excuse me, it did it like kind of like brought us back to reality. It made us a little bit more grateful for him and his teaching style because it was like, okay, well, even though he kind of kept her at a slower pace, she actually learned everything he taught her,
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
so and she wasn't as comfortable at these other places with retaining what they were teaching her
Yeah,
because
I
of it.
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Everybody's style is much different. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the trainers were great. Don't get me wrong, the other trainers were great. It's just it wasn't George. So, it's like we're all
Yeah.
right, we're waiting on George because that's
Yeah.
that's who we want.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah, well, I always say anybody that has a gift of teaching, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And I mean, it
yeah.
sounds like the good
Mhm.
thing about him was that he seemed to be more like a person that maybe taught them as an individual instead of
Yes.
a group.
Well, he did group teaching, but what he would do is he would so at the beginning of the class, he'll bring each person individually. He'll make them do their bumps and then, once everybody's done that, then he'll bring each person up individually who has a skill they still need to work on. He'll work on them with that for a minute. He'll partner them with somebody and then they'll kind
Yeah,
of and then they'll start training. So
Yeah,
he spends some time on bumps. He spends a little bit of time on individual training, and then he does group training, which I thought was fabulous because everywhere else is kind of like we just do this all as a whole group. And
yeah,
I'll kind of give you some pointers as to what you need to work on, and then I'll go to the next set. And it was like, I don't know. I mean, I imagine some people learn that way, but for her, and she's very shy. So for
yeah,
her, it's just that's just not her style. So,
yeah. I get
so
it. Yeah.
tell me about your journey. What kind
Well,
of led
so
you into that and so on.
so I actually wrestled in high school. I keep my little picture on my desk here.
Oh, nice.
But you know what? I was always a big fan of like WWE. My favorite wrestler is Kane, Carlito. I mean, I was a Chris Jericho fan,
Oh,
CM
okay.
Punk,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and so it's kind of funny because like so that kind of made me wanted to wrestle in high school. So freshman year, I joined the wrestling team and quit.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, well, so senior year, same year I got into the funeral business. I decided to join the wrestling team again, and I stayed and finished the season out. And I said, you know what, man, this was fun. Like maybe one day I maybe maybe do something with this. Like if I become a filmmaker, maybe I could call Triple H or Vince McMahon or somebody and be like, hey,
Yeah.
let me come check you out. But
Maybe
little
not
did I
Vincent McMahon
know.
right now, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I got forgiveness in my heart for everybody, but, but I'm like, and so then I wanted to make a documentary about pro wrestling. So I reached out
okay.
to Steve Bob,
Okay.
and me and Steve got to talking, and I came and I met some of the other wrestlers and stuff, and man, it was pretty cool because I got a chance to meet some really nice people, really cool people, and then he says to me, so when you gonna start training, Wade? I said, well, I guess I'll start next week.
Nice. Nice.
But I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it's been more of an inconsistent year because of work and filming and all this. But I mean, I'm learning at my own pace. And,
Yeah.
and like I told him, like when you work in the funeral business and trying to get stuff situated and then other life stuff, I mean, your life is not a normal life. I mean,
Yeah.
thank God, and I tell people this too. Anybody that owns a funeral home, appreciate them because the owners go through a lot of stuff, even the workers.
Oh,
But
I
oh
bet.
my, your life is that business takes over your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will take over your life.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm glad that you're able to, still pursue your other dreams. And it's funny. It's funny how, because we talked a little bit already, so I kind of already knew. But it is funny to me like how these three things are so very random. they're
Yeah,
they're not, I mean, like I said, I can see how you can kind of coordinate the filmmaking in with either the training or the funeral home, but they are three very seemingly random things. And it's funny how, you just kind of like glided into these things one from the other. And it's kind of about who because getting into training by someone saying, okay, you were here to do this, but how about you doing this? And you're like, cool, I'll give it a try.
yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah,
Um, my we were talking
yeah.
today.
So,
Mhm.
oh, you were asking about how do they intertwine?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well,
so for me,
aside
oh,
from
go
the
ahead.
fact
I'm
that,
sorry.
you were talking to different people through one profession and they kind of suggested you over into the other thing. But other than that,
Yeah, but like to me, the funny thing about it is like even though they seem different, they all have like two things in common to me.
hmm
And the one thing is that if you think about dealing with funeral service, right?
hmm
When you're sitting in that office with a family, you talk to them, you're listening to somebody's story about their life. You're learning about their beginning, their birthday to the day that the person died. You're
yeah,
finding out that they were married, how many kids they had. It's like you're hearing their story. And then
yeah,
you go over to filmmaking the storytelling. You
Mm-hmm.
go to professional wrestling, it's storytelling. So
That's
I
so
mean, they all so to me, they all kind of have that in
yeah.
common.
I wouldn't have thought, I wouldn't have thought to think of it that way. That's so true. That's
Yep.
so true. That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, that's
And the
good.
second thing and that they have in common is that you have to make everything believable, right? Like you think about it, when you dealing with a person that passed away, that person comes to you in all kind of conditions that may not be perfect, but
Hmm.
you have to go back there. You have to make that person look as good as you can make them. You
No,
know,
that's yeah.
you have to have a good presentation. Same thing with filmmaker. Like you want to put out a good presentation. You come over to professional wrestling. We all know, it's a business, it's entertainment, but you gotta make it look nice for the people, you know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, and then you obviously guest on podcasts, but you don't have your own podcast. You just guest on other people's. So
Yeah.
how did you come into that? How did that kind of tie into everything?
So to be honest, I always gotta give a shout out to this guy named Malibu Slim. I mean,
Okay.
because he was the first person, like, who has been like 2 years now. He saw my work and he like, hey man, would you like to guest on the podcast? And
Nice.
of course, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, we all help us one to another because like, don't get me wrong, because like to be honest, everybody's kind of with the same goal. Like everybody wants to get a
Mhm.
chance to share who they are with the world. So he gave
Yeah.
me a chance and then I prayed about it. And then like a bunch of more people just started kind of reaching out after that. So like,
Nice.
I appreciate everybody, and I won't forget anybody that ever had me on. Like, hopefully I get a chance to do something nice for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so again, you're doing one thing, you meet someone and they kind of connect you with this other thing. Just, kind of like that same pattern. Someone pointed out to me recently, I had a meeting with someone and they were like, "Oh, make sure and like send me this, this, and this." I asked for stuff. I'm like, "Hey, make sure you send me blah, blah, blah," because I want to start promoting people now that I have outside guests on, because like I said before, it was just kind of me and my ex or me and my friend, we're just having these conversations.
Yeah,
I've had people on, but they're people that I know. They're one of my friends, my longtime friend, one of my cousins, just like people that I know. So now that I'm like getting to know new people and having new people on, I want to make sure that I'm promoting people,
yeah,
advertising, grabbing people's attention. Like, hey, I'm going to have this person on to talk about this thing that you may enjoy. You might want to hear, blah, blah, blah. And not once am I thinking, okay, well, people are also going to be promoting me. That was not a thought in my mind because, like I
yeah,
said, I'm just kind of newly bringing people on. So the only people that I've had on are people that, like I said, I know we're Facebook friends. They're gonna, they may or may
yeah,
not even advertise their episode because some of these people are not even really like people who like to publicly speak. They might be talking
yeah,
about sensitive subjects. They might not want everybody on their Facebook to listen to this because, whatever.
yeah,
And so I haven't really thought about like promoting myself, but he pointed out, he was like, "Oh yeah, make sure, you send me this, this, and this from the episode and before the episode so that I can, put it out there that we're going to be on this and people can, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that's true. Like, obviously I have this podcast. I want people to hear it. So now, oh, like other people are going to be kind of promoting me in a way when they're on my show because they want people to hear it. And then other people come in
yeah,
and listen to more of my stuff. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. I haven't thought about that.
yeah.
I probably
And
should think about it more, but
you
you
should.
know,
And you know what? It's kind of funny you said that because to me, as you were speaking, the thought came in my mind that you know what I think about. Like, it's funny how sometimes you can know somebody your whole life, right? And then you meet somebody that you barely even know, and then you end up making a new friend because
yeah,
sometimes people that you just met might be closer to you than people you know in your whole life.
that's
So
true.
so the good thing about it is that it's a good thing to bring people together for good
Yeah.
reason. So like, so you should always do that. Like, you're doing a great job too. Like, but keep
Thank
promoting
you.
yourself too because That's the beauty of it. It's like we're all helpers one to another, and we're coming
Yeah.
together for a good cause.
Yeah, yeah, because everybody who comes on, even outside of, sorry, the mail truck's going by.
That's
Um,
okay.
so I usually record with my headphones on, but it feels like I pick up every little noise. So I've started just coming in a quiet place and recording. I don't have a mic. I'm like still kind of a newbie at this. Like I'm
It's
on
okay.
I'm heading close to 40 episodes in recording. I've got I think about 32 out, something like that.
Yeah,
But I'm still, like I'm still kind of new. So anyway, I have an office, but if I record in my office, you're gonna hear a train going by every 5 minutes. So that's
yeah.
not, an option. But yeah. So anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're
No,
talking
no,
about.
it does. No, but no, something you said is actually a good thought because you think about it.
Yeah,
Anybody that's ever did anything great in life, right? They started out with something and it wasn't perfect, but they
that's
kept
true.
perfecting. Like sometimes you can't, even if you don't have all your resources,
Hmm.
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because as you start, then it kind of motivates you to get what you need, or it helps you to get the funding for what you need. So
Hmm.
I mean, you got to start somewhere. So like, no, like you may not have everything now, but
Yeah.
as time goes on, it just gets better and better. But I think there's nothing wrong with having a humble beginning because sometimes people wait till they get things to start. But if
Yeah.
you're always waiting, you may never start.
Right,
So
right. That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. That's like with the office space that I have, it kind of came to me in a weird way. It's I clean. So we have a cleaning business, commercial and residential, and the company that we clean for, they have office space. And so we clean for them and they don't charge me anything. But I'm not losing any money. I offered, I was like, I'll pay rent, take it off our bill, whatever, whatever. No, absolutely not. Because it's kind of like a big family anyway. But
yeah,
it kind of it's funny because it's like I'm not there a ton, but having an office makes me feel a little bit more successful, because
yeah,
like I mean I do my podcasting at home, but it's like I can say like, oh, I'm going to the office. I don't know.
it's
It's
okay.
silly, but it's just kind of like, another little thing on the list to make you feel like a grown up, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't record there because it's just concentrate. But um is there anything else that you wait, I do want to kind of piggyback you were saying about meeting people through like doing podcasting and stuff like that. It's so true, and the length of the friendship really doesn't mean much because I've had friends that I've had since second grade. I probably don't even talk to now on a regular basis. I have a friend that I made through a mutual job. We've been friends, oh gosh, I don't know, like probably like 10 years now. Um, yeah, probably like 10 years. And I'm closer to her than people that I grew up with, and it's nothing against them because we grow up and we grow apart, and that's fine. If I saw them, I would hug them. Everything would be wonderful. But we don't talk on a regular basis. They have their lives and whatever. And but it's so true that, and I try to teach my kids this too, because one of my kids, when she was younger, went through this phase of thinking like I've even had to teach adults this, honey, not everyone is your friend because
Yeah,
my children, grown-ups, and I had to learn the hard way. I would do everything for everybody at one point. Money, whatever you needed, I got you. And I had to learn, like, I gotta have myself first. And just because I know you doesn't mean that I have to be your ride or die. It doesn't mean that we're friends. It's perfectly fine to call someone your acquaintance, you know,
mhm.
just because I know you doesn't, I've had, so teach the friends that my fiance, I had a conversation a long time ago because everybody was just friend, friend, friend. And I was like, but they're not. And it's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say I
Yeah,
have acquaintances,
yeah,
like we're acquaintances. We're becoming friends because we have good conversation. But it's not an insult to call you my acquaintance. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's not, yeah, not at all, Yep.
it's fine. It's not everyone has to be your best friend, and that's okay. But I do like the fact that I can have these conversations with people. We can talk about things. We can have a professional relationship. We can talk very randomly once in a while when we record, and we can
Yeah.
also become friends. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah, and I've made a couple friends through podcasting. One person I'm pretty close to. You know, we talk about some pretty intimate stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really cool. You know, just the it is. It's just your point is so valid that, you know, the time frame doesn't make a difference when it comes to friendships. And this is a really good way to develop friendships with people, but also not everybody, you know, again, you don't have to leave every conversation with a new best friend. Some things are just for your knowledge, gain of
Yep,
knowledge,
that's true.
experience,
Yeah.
you know, and you go on and you go interview the next person, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
I mean, and that's why, like, it goes back to this. I remember Miley Cyrus. Had a song she made when she was on the Disney Channel show, and she said, "Life is what you make it." And so
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like everything is what we make it.
yeah. Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
my daughter loves that show. Me and my daughter used to
Yeah.
watch that show all the time. She absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
She's like 19 now, so she might not admit it, but she loves it.
Yeah. I mean, but life is indeed what we make it.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And my last question I have, so I watched the short films that you sent me, and I definitely recommend. I'm gonna put either links or something like that in the information so that people can see the ones that you give access to, but uh the Vimeo. But there was one that you sent. I think there was like two or three that I watched, but there was one that I sent. It was more of kind of like showing kind of, how do I say this? It just kind of summarized the relationship. So I feel like it kind of summarized, but I really enjoyed it because it left me with questions, but in a good way. Like it left me with questions of like, oh dang, like now I really want to know about these people. Like I want to know, like, can you send like can you can you make more of these? Because I want to watch more about, like, I was very intrigued. So that was really cool because, you know, because I was explaining it to my fiance and I was like, but it left me with questions, but not in a bad way. Like it had me intrigued. I want to know more. Can you make a follow-up film to this? Because I will watch it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
If
Yeah.
no one else does, I will watch it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. At least I know I got somebody watching.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
But you know what? But that's key too. Like, it's nice to have a big audience, but I tell people, like, you create for you have fun with what you do, and and don't worry about the rest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a that's a good point. Sorry. Okay. My giant child had to come in and ask me a question. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, he's like shirtless and hairy, so he's like trying to stay out of the way. But I was like, well, it's obvious someone is in here, so just ask me what you need to ask me. Um, but yeah, I definitely, if you make a follow-up, you've got a fan right here because I really enjoyed it. So
I
I'll watch
appreciate it.
it. And it does, like, the way that you portray these things in this very short amount of time. It tells a really intriguing story, and that's not always easy to do because, you know, there's little details. Sometimes you have to pay attention to these details to figure out what's really going on. Because at the end, I was like, ooh, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I was like, that's shady.
Oh yeah, but actually, I love making short films. Like, I'm not really a feature type of guy. I mean,
Mhm.
At some point, I may make them, but I love it
Yeah.
because, like, to me, even when I used to do my ministry and stuff, like I was always one of them preachers that was right to the point. Like I don't really believe on hammering things down people's throats. Like you say what you mean what you say, and get out the way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of my motto. Yeah. You don't have to you don't have to overdo things or overstate things. Like just be brief, be right to the point. People get the message.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. I've caught myself over the years sometimes with my kids. I'm like, okay, you're kind of rambling, and I know that with children, the
Yeah.
more you ramble, the less they listen. So
Yeah.
you know, if with nothing else in parenting, I try to be like that. Okay, look, this is what it is, and that's just that. I'm not going to talk myself in circles because you're not paying attention anyway at this point. You're four, you
Yeah.
have no focus, like, and most adults have the same kind of lack of focus. So,
Yeah.
just say what you mean and be done with it.
Yeah, I did. I took a lot of public speaking too. Like, I
Oh,
learned that,
nice.
like, and even a lot of people tell me, like, I love how you just are so precise. But,
I mean,
I,
but when you're making a short film, you have to be perfect. Like, there's a lot that you have to pack in a short period of time, and
yeah,
even like I said, the little details you have to pay attention to everything because it's not like an hour movie where things can kind of be explained throughout. Like you got to
yeah,
pay attention. And
yep.
for someone with very bad ADD to be able to pay attention and keep my interest, even for those few short minutes, is great.
It's all right. At least you admit that. Look, a lot of us got that problem.
Like if I'm not talking or taking notes, I might not retain it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, but um, so I think that's all that I have. Um, is there anything that you want to talk about or put out there or promote yourself or anything you want me to
Sure.
add on?
I'm sure I'm Wade. You can find me on Vimeo, Wade filmmaker. 3 sevens on Vimeo. If you want to know why I use the number seven, because it's a very good number biblical wise. So just kind of a little representation there. All
Yeah.
of my films are more love stories, whether romantic or just about loving people, because love is like the greatest thing there is. Yeah,
Hmm.
the most powerful thing, and we should all have love one for another. So that's all I got.
And how can we find you on social media
Wade
if
Simmons,
if
and
you
then
want to?
I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so on Instagram I barely use it, but I'm Wade Jedi 99 on Star Wars. Always on the light side of the Force.
It was really fun having you, and I hope to have you back. So
Oh, absolutely. I'll be in touch, and I really appreciate you for the conversation.
yeah,
It's
absolutely,
always a
absolutely.
blast. Yep.
All right, we'll talk later, and I'll talk at you guys later.
All right.
All right, bye.
See you.
If anyone wants to chime in, or if anybody has questions they want us to answer or topics to discuss, you can leave that on the Facebook page. Visit www.philolity.net, that's FALOLITY, where you can purchase your own copy of Surviving Mom Brain and Dad Brain workbooks, as well as my autobiography. Adios, mi amigo.